The war room was massive. It stretched across the entire top level of the flagship. Screens covered every wall, showing maps of star systems and planets. Commander Thaxter stood at the center, his forearms crossed behind his back. He was tall, even for a Vrelian, with dark blue skin that marked him as military elite. Around the circular table sat 12 generals. They had conquered 47 worlds. Today they were choosing their 48th target. What about this one? General Vormak pointed at a screen. It showed a small yellow star with several planets orbiting it. The third planet has life, primitive but organized. Thaxter zoomed in on the planet. It was blue and green, covered mostly in water. He read the scout report aloud. Single intelligent species. They call themselves humans. No energy shields, no plasma weapons. They just invented faster-than-light travel 5 years ago. The generals laughed. One of them, General Kethra, slapped the table. 5 years? We have had hyperdrives for 3,000 years. Their weapons are chemical-based, another general added, reading from his tablet. Explosives and metal projectiles. How primitive, Thaxter smiled. It was an easy target. How many ships do they have? Maybe 200 military vessels, Vormak said. Our scout counted them. Most are small. The largest carries only 500 crew members. More laughter filled the room. The Vrelian flagship alone carried 10,000 soldiers. Their fleet had 5,000 warships. This will take 2 days, Kethra said confidently. Maybe 3 if they resist. Thaxter marked the system for invasion. Send the orders. We move in 1 week. Far across the galaxy on that tiny blue planet, Captain Jiho stood on the bridge of his ship. The Indomitable was one of Earth's newest vessels. It had been in service for only 8 months. Jiho was proud of it, proud of his crew. Captain, we are receiving a priority signal, his communications officer said. From Deep Space Monitoring Station. Jiho frowned. Deep space stations rarely sent priority signals. Put it through. The message was short. Unknown vessels detected, moving toward solar system. Large fleet. Estimated arrival in 7 days. Get me Admiral Daejung, Jiho ordered immediately. And prepare the crew. This might be first contact. 2 hours later, Jiho stood in Earth Command headquarters. It was buried deep under the mountains of Korea. Admiral Daejung sat at his desk looking tired. He was an old man with gray hair and sharp eyes. He had fought in the resource wars 20 years ago. He knew what war looked like. How many ships? Daejung asked. Our stations counted at least 3,000, Jiho replied. Maybe more. They are still too far to get accurate numbers. Daejung closed his eyes for a moment. 3,000 ships. Earth had 234 military vessels. The math was not good. Do we know who they are? No, sir. They have not responded to any of our hails. But our computers picked up some of their transmissions. We are trying to decode them now. In another part of the building, Dr. Heywan was arguing with the United Earth Council. She was a xenobiologist, an expert on alien life. For 10 years she had prepared for this moment. First contact with aliens. We must follow protocols, she said firmly. We send peaceful messages. We show them we are intelligent. We invite them to talk. Council Chairman Park shook his head. Doctor, they are bringing 3,000 warships. That is not how you say hello. Maybe they are just careful. Maybe they are scared of us. With 3,000 ships? Another council member laughed bitterly. They are not scared, Doctor. Across the room, Colonel Sungmin stood quietly. He was head of military intelligence. His people had been working for hours on the alien transmissions. He finally had results. I need to speak, Sungmin said, interrupting the argument. Everyone turned to look at him. We decoded some of their messages. Not all of them. But enough. He pressed a button and text appeared on the screen. They call themselves Vrelians. They are choosing which planet to invade next. They are laughing about us. The room went silent. Laughing? Dr. Heywan whispered. They think we are primitive. Easy. They expect to conquer Earth in 2 or 3 days. Sungmin looked around the room. They are not coming to talk, Doctor. They are coming to take our home. Admiral Daejung entered the council chamber at that moment. All eyes turned to him. All military fleets are moving to defensive positions, he announced. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier we have. We are preparing for war. Chairman Park stood up slowly. Can we win? Daejung looked at the star map showing the approaching fleet. Then he looked at the chairman. I do not know, but I know we will fight. Earth has never surrendered before. We will not start now. Outside in cities across the planet, people watched the news. The government had not told them everything. But rumors spread fast. Something was coming. Something dangerous. In space, the Vrelian fleet moved closer. In 7 days, they would arrive. Commander Thaxer was not worried. How could primitives fight back? He would soon find out that laughing at humans was a terrible mistake. The Vrelian fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a storm. 5,000 ships appeared beyond Mars, filling the darkness with their metal hulls. Each ship was enormous, dwarfing anything humans had built. Their engines glowed red, casting an eerie light across space. Commander Thaxer stood on his bridge, pleased with himself. The primitive planet was right there, small and blue and helpless. He opened a communication channel to Earth. "Attention, humans," his voice boomed through every radio and screen on the planet. "I am Commander Thaxer of the Vrelian Empire. Your planet is now ours. Surrender immediately, and you will live as workers. Resist, and you will die. You have 1 hour to respond." In Earth Command, Admiral Daejung listened to the message. Around him, officers waited for his orders. Everyone was scared, but they tried not to show it. Daejung had seen war before. He knew fear was normal, but he also knew that fear could be controlled. "Send our response," he said calmly. The communications officer nodded and opened a channel. "Commander Thaxer," Daejung spoke clearly. "This is Admiral Daejung of Earth Defense Force. You are in human space without permission. Leave now, or we will defend our home." On the Vrelian flagship, the bridge crew heard this response and started laughing. Thaxer laughed too. These primitives actually thought they could fight back. "Amusing," Thaxer said. "Send one destroyer. Let them see what real power looks like. Make it quick." The destroyer broke away from the main fleet. It was called the Razor Wind. Even alone, it was powerful enough to destroy a small moon. Its captain Velton did not expect any trouble. He would fire a few shots, destroy some human ships, and the planet would surrender. Simple. But Captain Jiho had other plans. "All ships, move to positions," Jiho ordered from the Indomitable. Around him, 30 human vessels activated their engines. "Remember the plan. We cannot match their power, so we do not fight them directly." The human ships scattered like leaves in wind. They moved into the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. The Razor Wind followed them, confident and careless. "They are running," Captain Velton laughed. "These humans are cowards." But Jiho was not running. He was hunting. The Indomitable hid behind a large asteroid, its engines at minimum power. The Razor Wind passed by, searching for targets. At the perfect moment, Jiho gave the order. "Fire everything." 20 missiles launched at once. They were old technology. Nuclear weapons that humans had used for decades. The Vrelians had never seen such primitive weapons in battle. Their shields were designed to stop plasma and energy weapons, not simple explosives moving at high speed. The missiles hit the Razor Wind from all sides. Nuclear fire bloomed in space. The destroyer's shields flickered and failed. More missiles came from other human ships hiding in the asteroids. Captain Youngjae's vessel, the Thunder, fired from above. Captain Hyunwoo's ship, the Storm, attacked from below. Captain Velton panicked. "Return fire. All weapons." But the Razor Wind was surrounded. Human ships darted between asteroids, making themselves hard targets. They fired and moved, fired and moved. The destroyer tried to turn, tried to target them, but it was too slow. Then Jiho made his final move. The Indomitable flew straight at the Razor Wind, all weapons firing. It was a desperate move, dangerous and bold. But it worked. The destroyer exploded. Fire and debris scattered across space. For a moment, everyone on both sides was silent. Then on the human ships, the crews started cheering. On the Vrelian flagship, Commander Thaxer stared at his screen in disbelief. The Razor Wind was gone, destroyed by primitives. "That is impossible," General Vormak whispered. "We lost a ship to humans?" Thaxer felt anger burning in his chest. "Send 3 more destroyers. Destroy every human ship in that asteroid field. Show them what happens when they resist." Back on Earth, Engineer Minji was working in an orbital defense station. She was young, only 26, but brilliant. When pieces of the Razor Wind started floating through space, she had an idea. "Send collection drones," she ordered her team. "I want every piece of that alien ship brought here. We need to study it." For hours, drones collected debris. Metal plates, computer systems, pieces of the shield generator. Minji examined everything carefully. She worked without sleeping, her mind racing with possibilities. "Look at this," she told her assistant, showing him a small device. "This is how their shields work. It is advanced, but not impossible to understand. If we can figure this out, we can build our own shields." He said, "Can we do it in time?" her assistant asked. Minji looked at her screens showing the approaching Vrelian ships. We have to try. In space, 3 new Vrelian destroyers entered the asteroid field. They were ready this time. Weapons powered and shields at maximum. They would not be surprised like the Razor Wind. But humans were good at learning. Captain Jiho had already changed his tactics. This time the human ships did not hide. They scattered in all directions, making the Vrelians chase them. Every time a destroyer focused on one human ship, 3 others would attack from different angles. The battle lasted 6 hours. It was brutal and costly. Earth lost 12 ships, but when it ended, one Vrelian destroyer was badly damaged and another was destroyed. The third one retreated. On the Vrelian flagship, the mood had changed. No one was laughing anymore. Commander Thaxir looked at the reports with growing concern. In one day, his fleet had lost 2 destroyers and damaged another. Against a primitive species. How is this possible? Sir, an officer approached carefully. The humans fight differently than other species. They do not follow normal tactics. They are unpredictable. Thaxir crushed the tablet in his hand. Then we adapt. Send a message to the War Council. We need more ships. This will take longer than expected. In Earth Command, Admiral Daejung watched the reports with mixed feelings. They had won the first battles, but at great cost. And the Vrelians had thousands of ships left. Earth had lost 12 vessels and had only 200 remaining. We cannot keep fighting like this, an officer said quietly. Daejung nodded. I know, but we proved something today. We proved we can hurt them, and now they know it too. The Vrelian Empire had conquered 47 species before humans. Every time the pattern was the same. First, destroy the military. Second, occupy the planet. Third, wait for surrender. Usually it took less than a week. But humans were breaking the pattern. Commander Thaxir stood in front of a holographic display showing Earth. Red marks covered the planet, showing where his forces had attacked. Blue marks showed where humans still resisted. There were too many blue marks. 3 weeks, he muttered. 3 weeks and they still fight. General Vormak approached with another report. Sir, our ground forces are requesting more troops. The humans are not behaving normally. Explain, Thaxir demanded. When we destroy their military bases, we expect civilian populations to surrender, but instead the civilians pick up weapons and fight. In some cities, children are bringing supplies to resistance fighters. The elderly are sharing information about our troop movements. Everyone is involved. Thaxir threw the report across the room. What kind of species fights with their children? In Seoul, Corporal Taeyang crouched behind a destroyed building. His squad had been fighting for 6 days straight. They were tired, hungry, and running low on ammunition, but they were still fighting. Vrelian shock troops moved down the street. They were huge, wearing powered armor that made them even bigger. Their weapons could punch through concrete. They expected humans to run when they saw them. Taeyang smiled grimly. Humans did not run anymore now, he whispered into his radio. From windows and rooftops, civilians opened fire. Their weapons were simple hunting rifles and old military guns. They could not penetrate Vrelian armor, but they did not need to. They just needed to be a distraction. While the Vrelians turned to face this unexpected attack, Taeyang's squad moved. They had learned that Vrelian armor had weak points at the joints. They had learned that explosives placed correctly could disable their shields. They had learned to fight smart, not strong. 3 Vrelians fell before the others retreated. It was a small victory, but these days, humans celebrated small victories. Across the city, Dr. Haewon worked in a hidden laboratory. She was no longer arguing for peace. Now she used her knowledge of alien biology for a different purpose. She was creating weapons. The Vrelian immune system is efficient but specialized, she explained to her team. They have never encountered Earth bacteria. If we modify certain strains, their bodies will not know how to fight them. Is that not biological warfare? A young scientist asked nervously. Haewon looked at him with tired eyes. They came to our planet to enslave us. I will use every tool I have to stop them. She worked day and night modifying bacteria, testing them on captured Vrelian equipment and tissue samples. Finally, she found something that worked, a modified flu virus that was harmless to humans but devastating to Vrelians. Release it in the occupied zones, she ordered. Through the water, through the air, everywhere they are. Within days, Vrelian soldiers started getting sick. Not all of them, but enough. Their commanders had to pull back forces to medical ships. Occupation became harder when your troops were falling ill. In space, the war continued. Lieutenant Nari was a fighter pilot, one of the best Earth had. She flew a small fast ship called a Falcon. Alone, one Falcon was nothing against a Vrelian warship. But Nari was never alone. She led a squadron of 200 Falcons. They had developed a new tactic called the Terran Swarm. All 200 ships would attack a single target at once from all directions. The Vrelians could not track them all. They could not shoot them all down. Like bees attacking a bear, Nari told her pilots before each mission. One bee sting does not hurt much. But 200 bee stings can kill. They attacked a Vrelian supply ship. The huge vessel tried to defend itself, its weapons firing in all directions. 10 Falcons were destroyed. 20 more were damaged. But 170 made it through, and their weapons tore the supply ship apart. Target destroyed, Nari reported, returning to base. But there would be no rest. Another mission was already being planned. On the Vrelian flagship, Commander Thaxir called a meeting of his generals. They gathered around the table, but no one was smiling now. "We have lost 53 ships," Thaxir said. 53, against a species that should have surrendered in days. "They are not rational," General Kethra complained. "We destroyed 10 of their ships. They celebrate destroying one of ours. Normal species would see the math and give up. But humans are not normal," said an intelligence officer named Dralix. He had been studying captured human data. "I have been reading their history. They have fought wars against each other for thousands of years. They are very good at war, and they have a cultural trait that we did not account for." "What trait?" Thaxir asked. "They refuse to accept defeat. In their history, many times a smaller force defeated a larger one through determination. They have stories about it, songs about it, movies about it. It is part of how they think." Vormak shook his head. "Every species has stories of unlikely victories. It does not mean anything. With respect, General, it does mean something. Other species see war as a logical calculation. If they cannot win, they surrender to save lives. But humans see surrender as worse than death. They would rather die fighting than live under occupation." Thaxir was silent for a long moment. Finally he spoke. "Then we will have to kill them all. If they will not surrender, we will exterminate them." "Sir," Dralix said carefully, "there are 8 billion humans on that planet. We have never attempted genocide on that scale." "We have never faced a species like this," Thaxir replied coldly. "Send the request to the War Council. Ask for permission to use planet-killer weapons." Back on Earth, Colonel Sungmin's intelligence team intercepted this message. They decoded it and sent it immediately to Admiral Daijung. Daijung read it 3 times, hoping he had misunderstood. But the meaning was clear. The Vrelians were going to destroy Earth entirely. He called an emergency meeting of all military commanders. Captain Jiho was there, so was Lieutenant Nari, Corporal Taeyang, and dozens of others. They looked tired. They had been fighting for weeks without rest. "They are going to use planet-killer weapons," Daejung told them simply. "If we do not stop them, Earth will be destroyed." The room was silent. Then Jiho stood up. "Then we strike first," he said. "We take the fight to their command ship. Cut off the head." "That is suicide," another captain said. "Their flagship is surrounded by hundreds of warships." Jiho smiled. "They probably said the same thing about Earth." The Vrelian 7th Fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system like an iron hammer. 800 more warships fresh and ready for battle. Commander Thaxir felt relief for the first time in weeks. With these reinforcements, he could finally crush the human resistance. "Deploy the fleet in standard formation," he ordered. "We will surround the planet and bombard every military installation until nothing remains." But Admiral Daejung had no intention of fighting a standard battle. He knew Earth's forces could not win a direct fight against 800 fresh warships. So he would not try. "Colonel Sungmin," Daejung called. "Is your plan ready?" Sungmin nodded. For days, his intelligence team had worked on something special. They had cracked the Vrelian communication codes completely. Now they could not only read Vrelian messages but send fake ones. "We are broadcasting false signals now," Sungmin explained. "The Vrelian sensors will show human ships that do not exist. We have created fake energy signatures for over 1,000 vessels. On Vrelian screens, Earth's fleet suddenly appeared much larger. Instead of fewer than 200 ships, sensors showed more than 1,000. The readings showed massive battleships, powerful carriers, ships that did not actually exist. Where did they get so many ships?" General Vormak asked in confusion. "We destroyed hundreds already." Thaxir studied the sensors carefully. "Something is wrong. Scan again." But human jamming made it impossible to get clear readings. The Vrelians had to assume the threat was real. They adjusted their formation, spreading out to face this larger phantom fleet. While the Vrelians repositioned, Engineer Minji activated her greatest achievement. After weeks of studying captured Vrelian technology, she had built humanity's first energy shield generator. It was huge, inefficient, and required the entire power output of 3 nuclear reactors, but it worked. The orbital defense station where she worked suddenly lit up with a blue glow. Energy shields surrounded it like a bubble. When Vrelian weapons hit the shields, they held. Not perfectly, and not forever, but they held. Shields at 70%, an officer reported. We can take a full bombardment for at least 10 minutes now. Minji allowed herself a tired smile. 10 minutes is better than 10 seconds. Keep monitoring. I need data on how they hold up. In space, Captain Jiho led his strike force. 50 ships, all volunteers ready to do something incredibly dangerous. They were going to attack the Doom of Thousands, the Vrelian flagship itself. Remember, Jiho spoke to all his captains, we do not need to destroy it. We just need to damage it enough to make them retreat. Hit the engines, hit the command center, then get out. And if we cannot get out? Captain Youngjae asked quietly. Then we make sure our attack counts, Jiho replied. The human strike force accelerated using the sun's gravity to slingshot themselves at incredible speed. They came from an unexpected angle, using the sun's radiation to hide their approach. It was dangerous flying so close to the sun. 2 ships suffered heat damage and had to turn back, but the rest made it through. They emerged from the solar radiation like sharks from deep water. The Vrelian flagship was right in front of them, massive and seemingly invincible. Its escort ships moved to intercept, but they were out of position. For just a few minutes, the flagship was vulnerable. All weapons fire, Jiho commanded. 50 ships unleashed everything they had. Missiles, railguns, even old-fashioned explosives. Some weapons bounced off the flagship's shields, but some got through. The Doom of Thousands shuddered under the assault. On the Vrelian bridge, alarms screamed. Commander Thaxter grabbed his command chair as the ship shook violently. Shields down to 40%. An officer shouted. Engine room is reporting damage. How did they get so close? Thaxter roared. Where were our escorts? But there was no time for answers. Captain Hyunwoo's ship, the Storm, made a suicide run. He aimed his vessel directly at the flagship's command tower, engines at maximum. His crew had already evacuated in escape pods. He was alone on the bridge. For Earth, Hyunwoo whispered, and hit the fortress with his ship. The explosion tore a hole in the flagship's armor, not enough to destroy it, but enough to cripple it. Critical systems failed. The command center lost power. For precious minutes, the mighty Doom of Thousands was helpless. Jiho wanted to press the attack, but his tactical officer shouted a warning. Vrelian reinforcements incoming. We need to leave now. The human strike force scattered, retreating before the Vrelian escorts could surround them. They had lost 19 ships, including Hyunwoo's sacrifice. But they had achieved the impossible. They had hurt the flagship. Thaxter stood in the darkness of his damaged bridge, emergency lights casting red shadows. Around him, officers worked frantically to restore systems. He felt something he had not felt in decades, fear. Status report, he demanded. Main engines offline. Weapon systems down to 30% capacity. Command and control systems damaged. We need to return to friendly space for repairs. Thaxter wanted to refuse. Wanted to stay and fight. But a damaged flagship was a target, not a weapon. Set course for the nearest repair station. We retreat. It was the first time the Doom of Thousands had ever withdrawn from battle. On Earth, news of the victory spread fast. People celebrated in the streets. For weeks they had seen only losses and suffering. Now finally they had struck a real blow. But in Earth Command, Admiral Dae-jung was not celebrating. He read a new intelligence report with growing dread. What is it? Captain Jiho asked. He had just returned from his mission, exhausted but alive. Our spies in Vrelian communications have decoded another message. Dae-jung said quietly. The Vrelian War Council has approved Thaxter's request. They are sending the First Armada. What is the First Armada? Their elite fleet. 3,000 of their best warships carrying their most powerful weapons, including planet-killer weapons. Dae-jung looked at Jiho with heavy eyes. The First Armada has never lost a battle. Not once in 300 years. Jiho was quiet for a moment. Then he straightened his tired shoulders. Then maybe it is time for them to lose their first. Across the planet, human forces prepared for the next phase. Dr. Heywan worked on more biological weapons. Corporal Tae Yang trained civilian resistance fighters. Lieutenant Nari drilled her pilots in new tactics. Engineer Minji built more shield generators. Everyone knew what was coming. The Vrelians had been holding back, testing the humans. Now they would come with full force. They would come to destroy Earth completely. But humans had learned something important during these weeks of war. They had learned that the Vrelians were not invincible. They could bleed. They could be hurt. They could be forced to retreat. And if the mighty Vrelian Empire could be hurt, then maybe, just maybe, it could be beaten. In his private quarters, Admiral Dae-jung looked at a picture of Earth from space. That tiny blue planet so small and fragile. The Vrelians had laughed at it. They had thought it would be easy prey. They were learning differently now. But the real test was still to come. The first armada was coming, and Earth would either survive or die trying. The first armada appeared like a dark cloud blocking out the stars. 3,000 warships, each one a masterpiece of Vrelian military engineering. At their center was a vessel so massive it had its own gravity field. The World Breaker, carrying weapons designed to shatter planets. Grand Admiral Krixvoll commanded the first armada. He was ancient by Vrelian standards, over 200 years old. He had fought in 50 wars and won them all. When he heard about the human resistance, he did not laugh like others had. He studied their tactics carefully and respected them, but respect would not save them. Scan the planet, Krixvoll ordered. Find every military installation, every weapons factory, every command center. We will destroy them all in one coordinated strike. On Earth, warning sirens screamed across every continent. The first armada had arrived. People who had started to hope for victory now felt fear again. This was not like before. This was overwhelming force, impossible to resist. In Earth Command, Admiral Dae-jung held an emergency council. Every important military leader was there, connected by video from across the planet and space. We cannot win a direct fight, he said simply. 3,000 ships against our remaining 160 vessels. The math is clear. Then what do we do? Someone asked. Surrender? Never, Captain Jiho said firmly. We change the game. If we cannot beat them in open battle, we do not fight them in open battle. Colonel Sung-min stepped forward. My team has been working on something. We have not just been spying on the Vrelians. We have been contacting other species in their empire. Everyone turned to look at him in surprise. What do you mean? Dae-jung asked. The Vrelians have conquered 47 species. Many of them are still under occupation, working as slaves. We sent them messages, showed them videos of our resistance. We told them that rebellion is possible. Sung-min activated a holographic display. It showed a map of the Vrelian Empire. Red dots marked locations where occupied species were rising up against their masters. 5 species have started active rebellions. 8 more are conducting sabotage. The Vrelians are receiving reports of problems across their empire. They thought humans were the only issue. Now they have fires burning everywhere. Grand Admiral Krixvoll received these reports with cold anger. He understood what had happened. The humans had weaponized hope. They had shown other conquered species that the mighty Vrelian Empire could be resisted. The humans are clever, he admitted to his officers. They know they cannot win alone, so they turn our empire against us. But it will not matter. Once Earth is destroyed, these rebellions will collapse. They will lose hope again, he gave the order. Prepare the planet killer weapon. We will end this. But ending things would not be so simple. Engineer Minji had been very busy. She had not built just one shield generator. She had built 20 of them, installed on orbital platforms around Earth. When the first armada moved to attack, all 20 shields activated at once. A blue dome of energy surrounded the entire planet. It was not perfect. There were gaps and weak points, but it was something humanity had never had before, a chance to survive. The Vrelian bombardment began. Energy weapons that could melt mountains struck the shields. Nuclear weapons exploded against them. For hours the assault continued. The shields held, but barely. Engineers worked frantically, rerouting power, reinforcing weak points, buying every second they could. While the shields held, Lieutenant Nari led her Falcon squadrons on a desperate mission. They could not stop the first armada, but they could strike at Vrelian supply lines. Every ship needed fuel, ammunition, repair supplies. If those were cut off, even the mighty first armada would be weakened. Remember, we are not trying to win battles, Nari told her pilots. We are trying to cost them resources. Every supply ship we destroy, every convoy we raid, makes their fleet a little weaker. Her forces split into dozens of small groups, hunting Vrelian supply convoys across the solar system. It was dangerous work. Many pilots did not return, but the supplies kept getting destroyed. On the ground, the war had become personal. Corporal Tae Yang and his resistance fighters had learned every trick of urban warfare. They used the sewers to move unseen. They turned buildings into traps. They struck at night and disappeared before dawn. The Vrelians had superior technology, but they were fighting on human territory. Tae Yang's people knew every street, every building, every hiding place. And they were not fighting alone. Citizens helped them, fed them, hid them. Even children carried messages through areas the Vrelians controlled. Why do they not give up? A Vrelian officer asked his commander after another ambush. We have killed thousands. We control their cities. Why do they still fight? The commander had no answer. He had fought in 20 campaigns. He had never seen anything like this. Dr. Haywan's biological weapons had become a nightmare for occupation forces. Vrelian soldiers fell sick constantly. Medical ships were overwhelmed. Commanders had to rotate troops out of occupied zones just to keep them healthy. Every day they stayed on Earth, more of them got sick. But the greatest blow came from an unexpected direction. Commodore Jiho, promoted after his successful attack on the flagship, had been studying Vrelian fleet movements carefully. He noticed something important. They are creatures of habit, he explained to his officers. They use the same formations, the same tactics, the same supply routes. They have won so many times that they forgot how to adapt. He devised a plan. It was risky and required perfect timing. But if it worked, it could turn the entire war. The plan involved using false signals again, but differently this time. Instead of making Earth's fleet look bigger, they would make it look weaker. They broadcast fake distress calls, showed ships running low on fuel, pretended their defenses were failing. Grand Admiral Krixval saw these signals and made a decision. The shields were weakening. The humans were desperate. It was time to finish this. He ordered the First Armada to move closer to Earth, tightening the siege. Every ship moved into position for the final bombardment. The World Breaker itself moved forward, preparing to use its planet-killer weapon. That was when Jiho sprang his trap. Hidden in the dark side of the moon were 30 human ships, engines cold, waiting silently. They had been there for days, invisible to Vrelian sensors. Now as the First Armada focused on Earth, these ships activated. They did not attack the Armada directly. That would be suicide. Instead, they targeted the World Breaker's support ships, the vessels that provided it with power and targeting data. Without warning, missiles struck these support vessels. 3 of them exploded. 2 more were crippled. Suddenly, the mighty World Breaker was blind and powerless, its planet-killer weapon unable to fire. All ships concentrate fire on the World Breaker, Jiho ordered. Every human vessel still able to fight converged on the massive ship. It was still dangerous, still powerful. But without its support fleet, it was vulnerable. For the first time in its existence, the World Breaker was in real danger. Grand Admiral Krixval watched in shock as his greatest weapon came under assault. He had been outmaneuvered. These humans had lured him into a trap using his own confidence against him. All ships protect the World Breaker, he commanded. The First Armada turned to defend their flagship. The careful siege formation broke apart as ships rushed to respond to the crisis. In the chaos, human forces struck from multiple directions. It was not enough to destroy the First Armada, but it was enough to hurt them. The battle raged for hours. The World Breaker survived, but it was damaged. So were dozens of other Vrelian ships, and the humans were still fighting. Krixval made a strategic decision. Pull back. Regroup at the outer system. We need to reassess. For the second time, a Vrelian fleet retreated from Earth. News traveled fast across the galaxy. The First Armada, undefeated for 300 years, had retreated from a primitive planet. Species that had lived under Vrelian rule for decades heard this news, and something changed in them. If humans could resist, maybe they could too. On the planet Keles 4, workers in a mining colony stopped their machines. They barricaded themselves inside the facility and refused to work. When Vrelian overseers threatened them, they did not back down. We have seen the humans fight, one worker said. If they can stand against the Empire, so can we. On the ice world of Thar 7, rebels sabotaged military equipment. On the desert planet Zen 2, scientists stopped cooperating with Vrelian research projects. Across the Empire, small acts of defiance multiplied into something bigger. The Vrelian War Council held an emergency meeting. They faced a crisis unlike anything in their history. It was not just about Earth anymore. Their entire empire was beginning to crack. "We must make an example of Earth," one council member argued. "Destroy the planet completely. Show everyone what happens to those who resist." But another council member disagreed. "If we destroy Earth, we create martyrs. The rebellions will grow worse. We need a different approach." The debate raged for hours. Meanwhile, Grand Admiral Krixvoll studied his enemy more carefully. He had underestimated humans once. He would not make that mistake again. On Earth, the situation was desperate despite their victories. The shields were failing. Cities lay in ruins. Millions were dead. Food and medical supplies were running low. Engineer Minji worked around the clock, but even she could not hold the shields up forever. "We need more power," she told Admiral Daejung. "The shields are draining every reactor on the planet. In 3 days, maybe 4, they will fail completely." Daejung looked at her tired face. She had not slept properly in weeks. None of them had. "Can you give us 5 days?" "Maybe. Why?" "Because in 5 days, help might arrive." Colonel Sung-min had been in secret communication with rebel groups across the Vrelian Empire. Some of these groups had ships. Not many and not powerful ones. But they had something more valuable than weapons. They had determination. A fleet was gathering. Ships from 6 different species, all united by a common enemy. They were not as advanced as Vrelian vessels. But they had learned from watching humans fight. They had learned that determination could overcome technology. This rebel fleet was heading toward Earth. It would arrive in 5 days. Dr. Haewon had made another breakthrough. By studying Vrelian biology and comparing it with other alien species, she had discovered something important. The Vrelians had engineered their genetics long ago to make themselves stronger and healthier. But this engineering had a weakness. Their DNA is too perfect, she explained to her research team. Too specialized. If we create a virus that targets their specific genetic markers, it will spread through their entire species faster than anything natural. That could kill millions of Vrelians, a scientist said quietly. Maybe billions. Haewon set down her equipment and looked at her colleagues. "I know, and I hate that we are even considering this. But they came here to destroy us. They have killed millions of our people. This weapon might be the only thing that stops them." The ethical weight of that decision hung in the air. Could they do it? Should they do it? Was becoming monsters the price of survival? Admiral Daejung made the decision for them. Prepare the weapon, but do not deploy it. It is our last option. Only if Earth is about to fall, maybe we will not need it. In space, Commodore Jiho prepared for what he expected to be the final battle. The First Armada was regrouping, preparing for another assault. Human forces were exhausted, battered, running on determination alone. "Sir," his communications officer said suddenly, "we are receiving a signal. Multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace. They are not Vrelian." Jiho looked at his screens in surprise. Ships were arriving, dozens of them. They were a mix of different designs, different technologies, and they were broadcasting a simple message. "We are here to help." It was the rebel fleet. Ships from Kelis 4, Thar-7s, N2, and 3 other worlds. They had come to fight alongside humanity. Tears formed in Jiho's eyes. For weeks, Earth had stood alone against impossible odds. Now finally, they were not alone anymore. The combined human rebel fleet positioned itself between Earth and the approaching First Armada. They were still outnumbered, still outgunned. But now they had allies, and that changed everything. Grand Admiral Krixvoll saw the rebel fleet and understood what it meant. The humans had done more than resist. They had sparked a revolution. If he destroyed Earth now, he would only make the revolution stronger. But if he retreated, the Empire would see it as weakness. He was trapped by his own tactics. For 300 years, the Vrelian way had been simple. Overwhelming force, total victory, complete domination. But that approach had created an empire held together by fear. And humans had shown that fear could be overcome. On Earth, Sergeant Chan Wu led a team that had just captured a Vrelian general named Torvas. The general was injured, his armor damaged. Chan Wu expected him to fight to the death. Instead, Torvas surrendered. "Why?" Chan Wu asked. "Why give up now?" Torvas looked at him with exhausted eyes. "Because I am tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of killing. We were told this would be easy. We were told you would surrender. But you never did, and now I have seen too much death. Chan Wu could have killed him. Should have, perhaps. But instead he called for medics. They treated Torvis's wounds. They gave him water and food. They treated him with basic decency. Word of this spread through Vrelian ranks. The humans were fierce fighters, yes. But they were not cruel. They would fight to defend their home, but they were not seeking revenge. They just wanted to be left alone. Admiral De Jung received a surprising message. Grand Admiral Krixavol wanted to talk. Not surrender terms. Not demands. Just talk. It could be a trap, Captain Jiho warned. Probably, De Jung agreed. But we should listen anyway. They arranged a meeting on neutral ground, a small moon between Earth and Mars. De Jung brought Jiho and Colonel Sungmin. Krixval brought 2 of his officers. The 2 leaders faced each other across a table. Both were old, both were tired. Both had seen too much war. Why did you not surrender? Krixval asked directly. We offered you life as workers. That is better than death. Is it? De Jung replied. Life without freedom? Life as slaves? What kind of life is that? A practical one. You would be alive. We are not a practical species, Admiral. We would rather die free than live in chains. Krixval was silent for a moment. Then he said something surprising. I have fought 50 wars. Won them all. But this war I cannot win. Even if I destroy Earth, the rebellions will continue. Your resistance has taught other species that the Empire can be fought. You have broken something that cannot be fixed. Then what do you propose? De Jung asked. A truce. Not surrender, not victory. Both sides stop fighting. The Empire will leave your system. You will not interfere with Imperial territory. And the other species rebelling against you? Krixavol's expression darkened. That is not your concern. It is, De Jung said firmly. We did not fight just for ourselves. We fought for the idea that species should be free. If you want peace with us, you need to give those rebels their freedom too. The Vrelian admiral stood up angrily. You ask too much. Then we keep fighting, De Jung said calmly. And your empire keeps cracking apart. The meeting ended without agreement. War would continue. But something important had happened. Both sides had talked, and talking meant that peace was possible even if not today. The war ended not with a bang but with exhaustion. The first armada pulled back to the outer system. The rebel fleet stayed near Earth, too damaged to pursue. Both sides watched each other warily, waiting to see what would happen next. Inside the Vrelian Empire, the situation was falling apart. The War Council met in emergency session. 12 species were now in open rebellion. Supply lines were disrupted. Garrison forces were stretched thin, and all of it traced back to one small blue planet that refused to surrender. Commander Thaxter stood before the council, his career in ruins. He had started this war with confidence and laughter. Now he faced judgment for losing it. You told us Earth would fall in 3 days, a council member accused. It has been 3 months. 3 months of losses, embarrassment, and rebellion spreading across our empire. I underestimated them, Thaxter admitted. We all did. We thought superior technology meant certain victory, but the humans taught us that technology alone is not enough. They had something we did not account for. What? Another council member demanded. Will, Thaxter said simply. The absolute refusal to accept defeat. Every time we hurt them, they fought harder. Every loss made them more determined. We have conquered 47 species by breaking their will to resist. But human will cannot be broken, and now other species have seen this and found their own will to resist. The council chamber fell silent. They all understood what this meant. The Vrelian Empire, stable for centuries, was facing its greatest crisis. All because they had laughed at a tiny blue planet. Grand Admiral Krixavol received new orders from the War Council. The orders were not what he expected. The Empire was offering Earth a treaty, real peace, not just a temporary truce. Earth would remain independent. In exchange, Earth would stop encouraging rebellions in Imperial space. Krixavol did not like these orders, but he understood them. The Empire could not afford this war anymore. They needed to stop the bleeding before everything collapsed. He sent the peace offer to Admiral Daijung. On Earth, the United Earth Council debated for hours. Some wanted to keep fighting until the Vrelian Empire completely fell apart. Others argued that Earth needed peace to rebuild. Cities were in ruins. Millions were dead. The planet's resources were exhausted. Dr. Haiwan, who had created terrible weapons to defend Earth, spoke in favor of peace. We fought to survive, not to destroy. If we keep pushing, we become conquerors ourselves. Let us accept peace and help rebuild. Corporal Tae Yang, who had fought in the streets of Seoul for months, disagreed. They came here to enslave us. Why should we show them mercy? Because, Admiral Dae-jung said quietly, mercy is what separates us from them. We did not fight to become monsters. We fought to remain human. The vote was close, but peace won. Earth would accept the treaty. The war was over. The formal signing took place on neutral ground, witnessed by representatives from the rebel species. Admiral Dae-jung signed for Earth. Grand Admiral Krixvoll signed for the Vrelian Empire. Both men looked at each other with a mix of respect and lingering anger. You won, Krixvoll said quietly as they finished. Not through strength, but through stubbornness. My people will study this war for centuries. So will mine, Dae-jung replied. But I hope we both learn the right lessons. What lessons are those? That freedom matters more than power. That determination can overcome technology. And that underestimating your enemy is the fastest path to defeat. Krixvoll nodded slowly. We will not make that mistake again. The Vrelian fleet left the Sol system. Behind them, they left a planet scarred but standing. Earth had survived. In the months that followed, rebuilding began. Engineer Minji led efforts to repair the orbital defense platforms and improve shield technology. Lieutenant Nari, now promoted to commander, helped train the next generation of pilots. Dr. Haewon destroyed her biological weapons and returned to studying alien life for peaceful purposes. Sergeant Chan Woo became an instructor, teaching urban combat tactics to defense forces. His story of showing mercy to General Torvus became famous. It symbolized what humans could be at their best, fierce when necessary, but not cruel. The rebel species that had joined the fight formed an alliance with Earth. They called it the Free Worlds Coalition. It started small, just 7 species, but it grew. More worlds left the Vrelian Empire or won their independence. The empire that had once dominated the galaxy began to shrink. The Vrelians blamed Earth for this. In their military academies, they studied the Earth War as a cautionary tale. They analyzed every battle, every tactic, trying to understand how they had lost. But the real lesson was simpler than they wanted to admit. They had lost because they thought technology made them superior, and will made them weak. Humans had proved them wrong. 1 year after the war ended, Commodore Jiho stood on the bridge of Earth's first deep space exploration vessel. It was called the Pioneer, designed not for war but for exploration. The ship was getting ready to leave the solar system on a 5-year mission to explore nearby star systems. Sir, his communications officer said, we are receiving reports from the frontier. A species called the Korthax are making threats. They have a large military fleet. Jiho smiled slightly. He had heard this story before. Some new aggressive species thought they could intimidate others through strength. They probably had not heard about Earth yet. Broadcast a message to them, Jiho ordered. Tell them we are a peaceful species interested in cooperation, but also tell them our history. Let them know what happened when the last empire tried to conquer that tiny blue planet. The message was sent. Jiho imagined the Korthax commanders reading it, learning about Earth's war with the Vrelian Empire. He imagined them looking at their star charts, seeing that small blue planet in an unremarkable system. Would they laugh like the Vrelians had? Would they dismiss humans as primitive and weak? If they did, they would learn the same lesson. The hard way. On Earth, in a memorial park built where Seoul had once burned, Admiral Dae-jung stood before a wall of names. Millions of names carved in stone, every person who had died defending Earth. He came here often, remembering the cost of victory. A young girl approached him, maybe 10 years old. She held flowers to place at the memorial. Are you Admiral Dae-jung? She asked shyly. I am, he replied gently. My grandfather's name is on this wall. He flew a fighter ship. I never met him, but my mom tells me stories. Dae-jung knelt down to her level. Your grandfather was a hero. They all were. They fought so you could grow up free. Were you scared during the war? She asked. Very scared, he admitted. Every day. But being scared did not mean we could give up. The girl thought about this. Then she placed her flowers at the base of the memorial wall. I want to be like you when I grow up. I want to protect people, Dae-jung smiled. Then Earth's future is in good hands. As he watched the girl walk away with her mother, Dae-jung thought about the future. The war had been terrible. The cost had been high. But humanity had proved something important. They had proved that they belonged among the stars, not as conquerors, but as equals. The galaxy would never underestimate that tiny blue planet again. Far across the galaxy, in what remained of the Vrelian War Council, a young officer gave a presentation on potential military targets. When he suggested a small planet in a distant system, his commander stopped him immediately. "Is there intelligent life on that planet?" the commander asked. "Yes, but they are primitive. They only have chemical rockets and—" "No!" the commander said firmly. "Never again. Find a different target." The young officer was confused. "Sir, they are no threat to us." The commander pulled up a hologram of Earth. That tiny blue planet, so small and insignificant looking. "We thought that too once," he said quietly. "We were wrong. Never underestimate any species based on their technology. Never assume primitives cannot fight. And never ever start a war you are not certain you can win. Those lessons cost us an empire." The young officer looked at the blue planet with new understanding. It did not look dangerous, but neither did fire until you got too close. He would remember this lesson for the rest of his career. Back on Earth, the sun set over the rebuilt cities. Life continued. People laughed, loved, worked, and dreamed. The war was becoming history, something told in stories. But in orbit, defense platforms stood watch. In military academies, new officers trained. In laboratories, scientists developed new technologies. Earth would never be caught unprepared again. The tiny blue planet had survived its first contact with the galaxy. It had paid a terrible price, but it had survived. And in surviving, it had changed the galaxy forever. Humanity was no longer alone. They had allies now, friends who had fought beside them. Together, they would build something new. Something better than empires built on conquest. The future was uncertain. There would be new challenges, new threats. But Earth had learned something valuable during the war. They were stronger than they knew, more determined than anyone expected, and absolutely, completely unconquerable. Let the galaxy remember that.